Okay, hello everyone and welcome back to a new video. Okay, so I know it's been a while, but today I'm finally back after my exams. And today I'll present to you the bishop versus connected pawns. Basically, in this position with white, what you want to do is you want to get these pawns to the other side of the board, and so white will try and promote his pawns. And what black wants to do is first of all activate his king, right? In an ideal scenario, black wants to have his king in the corner and his bishop he wants to have most likely on the open file. Let's have a look. Basically, white has two plans of campaign. He can either go to a5 or he can go to c5. Why would white want to go to any of these squares? Basically, if he goes to c5, his idea is to make sure that this king can't get any closer. So white will try and go to d6, for example, and then it will be difficult for the black king to get into the game. If he goes to a5, the plan is to keep as close to the pawns as possible and try to promote them that way. First of all, let's start with king to c5. White's plan is to keep off the black king, but still black will try and activate the king with this move, but white will just say nope, and he will block the black king. And so now it's very difficult to make progress, because let's say you want to go like this, for example, it won't really work, because even if you can get there, then white will still block you, right? So it's not really a good idea to get around like this. So what do we do? A few moves seem very reasonable, right? And I'm speaking about all of these three moves. First of all, I'll discuss this one. This one I don't really like a lot, because actually these pawns aren't there yet, right? It makes little sense to put this bishop on this diagonal, but actually these pawns are far behind, so I don't really like this one. Let's have a look at this one. This makes already a little bit more sense, but still, why do I not like this one? It looks like we're controlling these squares, but actually that's not true, since in this position white has the option of going b4, b5. He has this option because the b5 square is protected by this pawn. So actually the only reasonable move here, and this is a very important technique to understand, is to first play this move, which is bishop to d1. It looks like we're helping white. Why? Because now he gets this move in, which is a5, and it looks like this move isn't doing anything because we're helping white to promote. But actually it's not true. Really, our plan of campaign with black is we want to put these pawns on the opposite color of the bishop, because now we, with this white square bishop, are perfectly able to control this white square, right? So we go bishop to e2, and now we actually control both of these pawns. After something like b4, it's very clear to see that actually there is no way for white in the future to make any progress. But let's say in this position we had played this move, which is bishop to e2, then actually this pawn wouldn't be here, and so it would be possible to go for this plan, which is to play b4, b5. Okay, so the only reasonable plan in this position is to go to d1. It looks strange, I know, but this is the way we do it. This, and now bishop there, and we control both of white's pawns. So as I said, something like b4 will happen, but no problem, because we control these squares. In this position, we will play a waiting move. So it doesn't really matter. I really like this move, which is bishop to f1. And now actually, there is no way, as I said, to move these pawns. So white will need and try and help his pawn. So he goes to c6. Now he says, I actually want to push this pawn because now I protect this square. But this is not a problem, since now this king is here. We can actually move our own king. And what do? Well, now we go for this plan again of going into the corner. So this is our plan. King e7, b5, and actually a very reasonable move here is king to d8, and this would eventually draw. But it's very important to look at tactical motifs, and actually in this case we have a very nice tactical shot. If you want, you can pause the video right now and have a look what we can do with the black pieces in this position. What we do here is simply take this pawn. And why do we do this? Because actually this is a drawn position. If, and it's possible in this position for black, to go into the corner. We will go to d8 and eventually we will be able to get into the corner. And it's very important to understand that a position in which the king is able to reach the corner, and with a rook pawn is a draw. So after something like this is a draw since it's stalemate. And if you don't really know with black how to draw this position, I will leave a link above so you can click on that and you can actually go to my video in which I explain everything about these types of positions. Now we've just seen what happens if the white king goes to c5, not to a5. So just a quick recap, he went to c5, this happened, and eventually we needed to make use of this technique, which is to attack the pawn and afterwards control these squares. Actually, let's go back. If the king goes to this square, it's very different. As I told you in the beginning, actually white's plan is to move these pawns up the board, but actually while being protected by its king. What is our plan in this position? It would be very reasonable to go for a plan like king there and going into the corner. But actually, in this case, it's not a very good idea. And what you should do is try and keep your king active by keeping in the center. But first, we will have a look what actually happens if you would decide and go for this plan. King f6, b4, king e7. But there's a problem with this move. Something like b5, king there, and it looks like the king is perfectly able to get into the corner, but actually it's not gonna happen. Why not? The king will try and stop him from accomplishing this plan. So something like this, and actually there is no way, right? So white will try and stop him, and there is no way to get into the corner. And actually this is even a win for white. Why is this a win? Because white will try and go for this move, this one, and this one, and this is a very nice combination. And by protecting the b7 square, even if the bishop is on this diagonal, white will be eventually able, even if the black bishop is sacked for the pawn, to promote. So I'll give you an example. The black bishop goes to f3, but what do we do with the white pawns? We push them forwards, and eventually we will be able to promote. Even if the black bishop sacks for the pawn, it will not work out in the end because white will be able to promote. That's not a good idea. So what do we actually need to do? Let's say white goes for this move again, b4. Now we don't go for this plan of trying to get into the corner because, as we know, white is too quick to keep us from doing this. So what do? We keep in the center with the king. We play king e5, b5, and now king to d5. And our king is centralized, which means that with the king we have a few options later on. After something like king to b6, white has to make sure this pawn has some space so it can move. We actually go with our bishop to f3, so it's on this long diagonal, which is very important if this bishop also wants to try and stop these pawns from promoting. And actually, after this move, trying to promote, our plan will be not to get into the corner or anything. No, we will try and actually attack these pawns from behind. So what we do is this. We go king to c4, very important plan. We attack this pawn from behind so that there is no way for the king to go forwards. After something like this, we go even to b4. It's very difficult for the white king to still move. We control a lot of squares around the white king. White pushes its pawn. We can play a lot of different moves. I think the most fancy option is to go to a8. We control a lot of squares around the king. And let's say the king would go to c7, then we would be able to capture the pawn with the king. So actually there is only one move the white king can play, which is to go to a6. And now it's actually a very simple draw by repetition, because there is no way that white can improve his position, and this will be a draw. So what we've seen in this particular position is that sometimes it's handy to get the king into the corner, but if we can't do it, it's better to opt for a king actively put in the center rather than trying to get in the corner if it doesn't really work. Also, we saw that this bishop can be a very handy tool to actually get these pawns on the opposite color of the bishop. Plus, the bishop usually is very strong on this diagonal when the pawns are trying to promote. With that said, I'll give a final exercise to you, which is this position. It's black to move this bishop against 3 of white's pawns, and your job is to try and draw this. And you should try and do this with the knowledge you have acquired in this particular video. Okay, the solution in this position is to go bishop to c1. What is this move doing? It's attacking this pawn as well as this one to try and get these pawns on light squares. Why do these pawns need to be on light squares? Because if they're on light squares, then this bishop will be stronger on this diagonal, because this bishop is controlling all of these squares. We want to get the pawns on the opposite color of the bishop, very important. So g6 is played and we go king to g8. But now this pawn is still attacked, so h7 has to be played and we get into the corner with the king. f6, and it looks like all of these pawns are moving forwards, and eventually we'll be able to promote because it's like 3 pawns against the king. But no, that's not exactly true, because remember, the dark square bishop is very effective against these pawns on light square. So what do? We go for this plan, putting the bishop on the long diagonal. If, say, white would push this pawn, then this is just the ideal scenario for black, because all of these pawns are on light squares. And so we can get the bishop to g7, from where it's like controlling like every single important dark square in the position. So after something like this, we would probably play something like this, this, and this. And actually we have full control over the dark squares. Instead, after this move, it's way more natural for white to go for this move, which is king to e6. But actually, in this position, and I hope you found it, it's not an easy move to find. If you didn't find it already, try and do it right now. So pause the video and try and look for a nice tactical shot. And yes, again, it's a sacrifice of the bishop. We go for this move, which is bishop takes on f6. A very nice one, because if the king takes back, this is a draw, because all of the squares around the king are controlled by either the king or the pawns. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!